people that Ed was actually one of the very first guests on our pilot episode back in January. So thank you so much. And co-living has not been out of the news cycle since you were here with us last. So thank you so much for coming in again.
Yeah, I think co-living has really gone into the news much more over the last few weeks because some developments are planned for Ireland. So what Remigo is really all about and what co-living is all about is actually creating communities of people. It's bringing together like-minded people. So on Remigo you can find, if you're looking to share with like-minded people, young professionals who are, for example, vegans, you can find vegans easily. And it's really all about the community aspect of it. So, for example, when I was living in Singapore, I moved to Singapore and I didn't really know anybody. I was a young professional, I was in my 20s, and obviously I wanted to live with people, like-minded people, but because I didn't know anybody, what do you do? So back then, this was a few years ago, it was in 2013 when I moved to Singapore, there was no co-living spaces that I could go to as in a co-living space of like-minded people, or there was no Remigo. And living in a city can actually be, it can be quite a lonely experience if you're a young person and you know nobody and you're living in an apartment on your own. So I wanted to live with basically live with friends. So I spent a huge amount of time going around Singapore after work in the evenings trying to find houses with people that could be my mates as well as rather than just other people in the flat, because that can improve your social life, because everything really starts in the home. So that's what gave me the idea initially to start Remigo, because I thought if I want to live with, say, entrepreneurs or sporty people or people that like doing this type of stuff I like doing, I should be able to find that person in a few minutes.
Let me ask you, if what you're doing there is you're looking for your own sort of small community in terms of the city and in terms of living with someone from that community.
Yeah.
Okay. So, what's your typical profile? Would it be a sports person? Because the sports person has an actual community there in terms of sports club, in terms of going to the local bar if you're living in Singapore.
It's to do with the types of people you want to share your home with. So a co-living community in a house could be a house share with 3 or 4 people or 5 people, or it could be a large residential development where they have 300 people or 400 or 500 people like they do in some co-living spaces in London. So if I want to share my house with like-minded people, and I love watching, I like watching tennis a lot, and I want to watch the French Open, and that might annoy people in a house if they hate tennis. They don't want to be watching tennis all the time, or if I like watching football. So it could be like that, or it could be, it could be people that you want to play sport with. So you know if you like playing tag rugby, you might want to live with people that like playing tag rugby. So it's not just about, it's about what you do in a home. If you're a night owl, you might want to live with night owls, or if you're 25 and you want to party all the time, a 35-year-old mightn't want to live with that person.
I think most young people particularly will have this experience because certainly in student accommodation, if you speak to any of the student accommodation officers in any of our universities, they will always tell you that people go into shared space in the first couple of months, but generally speaking after Christmas, that's when people have had their breaking point. So they've lived together from September to Christmas, they've had a break after over Christmas, their parents will have maybe talked them down off their ledge of I'm not going back to share with that person, or he does this or she does this. So actually January is the easiest time to find new accommodation in terms of people having left. So people seem to be able to live together incompatibly for up to 3 months, and that's the limit.
That's not good news for Ed.
But that's exactly why Ed's service is needed, because he wants people want to live with.
It's actually great news for me, because we're all about helping people find like-minded housemates. So it's all about creating those communities of like-minded people.
So tell me, okay, we've discussed.
You lived in New York. Did you share?
No.
Okay. Have you ever shared?
Years and years ago. But let me just put.
It's not pleasant.
Let me put you another question to you. Is that do co-livers have a contract then between each other, or is it just a very loose arrangement in relation to the property?
Okay, so just to go back to your original question, so the typical person living in co-living space is somebody in their 20s. So for example, in the Collective in London, the average age of someone in that space is 29, and on the Remigo platform, I think something like 70% of our members are between the age of 23 and 33. So the vast majority are young professionals. It's not actually students. Some students use it as well, but it is really a young professional market. And in terms of the contract, so it totally depends on the arrangement. So it could be that you're moving into an apartment and your contract is with the landlord who is renting that apartment. With co-living spaces, there tends to be a few different types of models, but with that, usually what happens is you will pay a monthly rent, which includes your bills.
But it's a license. It's not actually called a rent.
It's actually a license. Yeah, that's a license.
So
with
different.
Yeah, no.
tenancy rights.
My train of thought is this, as Carol has just explained to you. What is it, 3 months and to get?
Yeah, that's how long people can incompatibly live together.
Yeah, okay. Well, even if it stretches that bit further, and something happens, there's an accident or something like that, or the guys or girls' personality changes due to something. How can you relieve yourself of them, shall we say?
Well, it totally depends on who the landlord is. With some co-living operators, you sign a year-long lease. That's one particular model. With other co-living operators, you actually do a month-by-month lease. So with the month-by-month lease, which these types of co-living operators would typically target young professionals. A lot of the time, they'd be expatriates moving to a new country. It could be someone coming to work in Ireland for 6 months, say to work for Google or whatever, and you can do it a month-by-month arrangement. Again, it's to do with the particular co-living operator that you've moved in with. If it's in a house share situation, it's to do with the landlord. What actually happens a lot is one person will typically rent, say, a 3-bedroom apartment, and they will sublet the other 2 rooms, and usually the other tenants will go on to the lease. And landlords are largely happy with this if it just gets approved. And if somebody moves out, what you're doing is you're replacing in a typical house share situation, you get a replacement tenant. And Remigo makes that process much easier because we can match up tenants. They're actually finding each other on the platform.
Right.
So you've got, say, 2 room seekers or 3, they're finding each other, they're forming groups, and then they can go to landlords and rent entire apartments.
Okay. Sorry, before we finish up this, I just want to find out, because you were here back in January. There's been a lot of discussion about this. What has been the reaction like to you in relation to this service to date?
Well, it's actually been incredible because we actually went on a French and German TV program, ARTE. They made a documentary about the housing crisis in Dublin, of which Remigo largely featured. And that is because we've been helping thousands of expats moving to Dublin find accommodation. So, for example, a French girl was moving to Ireland to work for Indeed. So she was a young professional. She moved over, and she couldn't afford a house on her own because they're too expensive. Sure. So she actually used Remigo to find other housemates. So therefore, she had a group of people. The group formed up together in Remigo. Then they rented the house. And it's working out great. She was on the program talking about
Fantastic.
her experience.
It's a great way to share the deposit and get everybody's name on the lease, and fantastic.
So we've had situations of.
So it's been a positive experience.
Yeah, it's been
really,
very positive.
despite all the discussion and so on.
Well, we're bringing people together and enabling people to rent accommodation, because if the service isn't there, what are you going to do? How are you going to find like-minded people? How are you going to rent that house you can't afford on your own?
Yeah. Brian mentions just a really important point. Since you've been here last, there has been a lot of commentary, and it has been broadly negative. And I'm always conscious in situations like this that it's broadly negative by people who have not used the service, but also don't today have the need for the service. So can you tell me why people would choose this?
Well, I think the negative commentary has been around large co-living developments that are planned for Ireland. Like the commentary about Remigo has almost been universally positive. I mean, the feedback has been incredible.
Which is fantastic. Well done.
Well, thanks very
Absolutely.
much. So touching wood, that continues. I think it. So I'm really pleased with it, and it's helping people match up. So,
but where is the disconnect coming in? So we've got people protesting about these co-living spaces coming in, who will never live in them, and they genuinely don't see this as an appealing option. So can you tell me, who is it an appealing option for?
So the co-living, it's all to do with the creation of the community and the management of the co-living space. So just building the co-living residence is just one part of it. So it's all about the community. If you think you're moving into a space with like-minded young people, they're going to be your friends. That's actually the attraction to it. It's the community.
We'll
Okay,
be back in again.
I like that. So in future it won't be co-living, it'll be community living. I like it. Okay, Ed Burke, founder of Rumigo, thank you so much
Thanks
for
very
joining
much.
us. And I know the co-living conversation is just getting started, so I'm sure we'll be discussing this again. Thank you so much for joining us. So for tonight, Property Matters, that's it from us, that Brian Fox and myself, Carol Tallon, and thank you to all of our guests, to Shane on sound and Katie who produced. Thank you so much, and we'll see you